Now, I was in the market for a new car trailer that was a little bit longer, could carry a little bit more weight, and this is what I found. I went out and I found the cheapest brand new trailer on Marketplace that I could find, and I got what I paid for. Um, it's, I gotta fix it before I can use it. I drove about an hour out to pick it up, and I didn't even make it home before I had my first problem. There's a lot of people out there that don't think lights on a trailer are that important. As long as you can see my taillights. Well, that's not really a thing. If they don't work, that's a problem. On my journey home, I lost my turn signals, started blowing fuses in the truck, didn't even make it, and I was winging it from there. Luckily, I was on all country back roads, not a whole lot of traffic, made it home, and here we are. Got the deck off already, well, parts of it, and we've got a lot of work to do to get this so it's reliable, so you can just hook up to it, plug it in, and you know it's gonna work. So what I ended up getting, this is a 10,000 pound gross weight, 18 foot plus 2 foot dovetail, fold down ramps. You know, not a bad deal. It's got nice features, spare mount, you know, winch mount, a toolbox on the front that's way too small for anything you'd put into it. You know, it's not bad, but I had light problems right from the get-go. The brakes are incredibly out of adjustment and barely work. The wheel bearings, the hubs were hot by the time I got home. You know, they shouldn't be hot pulling it empty at 50 miles an hour. It just shouldn't happen that way. You know, tires are underinflated. Lug nuts weren't even tight. Now, the tires and the lug nuts, that's not uncommon. When you buy these trailers, or I should say, when the dealer buys these trailers, they buy a stack of them. They come stacked 5 feet, 5 tall, you know, 13.6 high as they can get the most out of their load. The wheels aren't on them. They're on the deck, another trailer sitting on them. That's how they space them out. That's how it works. I get it. The dealer comes through and they just start zinging lug nuts on. Well, it's not tight. You know, the last new trailer I bought, there were 20 PSI in the tires because they don't check that. That's your responsibility. And the lug nuts, well, a couple of them I pulled off with my hand. Well, I know better, but I went and picked this up without a torque wrench with me or any wrenches at all. And luckily I made it back, but you know, first thing I did was put a torque wrench on them, and yeah, they're loose. You'll have that. All right, let's start up at the front here. You know, 2 5/16 ball. Basically, you need that size ball for anything over 7,000 gross vehicle weight. All of my trailers are this size. I like to make everything universal. I don't want to carry 3 different hitches with me. So everything I've got is 2 5/16. And that's not to say I've got 2 trailers. I think I own 7 trailers. Far more trailers than one person needs to own privately. But here we are. You know, safety chains, those are decent. I've seen worse. You know, they at least have the forged hook on them. You got your breakaway cable if you're into that sort of thing. Personally, just hook it up right, you won't ever need it. Plug, you know, this is terrible. You know, just some loom over some basically individual wires that'll rot off as soon as they get wet. You know, this trailer wiring that's stuck together right here, that just doesn't last. You know, it gets cold and brittle. You know, first cold winter, it'll be terrible. It'll break right off, corrode, all of it. We'll be able to reuse the plug because that's just a generic splice-on plug. But all of that wiring is going to get redone. Got a drop leg jack. That means the bottom half will unpin and lower. You can pin it again and then lower your jack, so you're not having to crank it down on blocks the whole time. I don't love top line jacks, but you know, it seems to be what everything comes with. They're the most universal. We got this tiny little toolbox. You know, it's basically sheet metal. I think the floor pans in my truck are thicker, so that'll rot out the first winter. Where I'm at, as in my state, they salt the hell out of the roads. Moving on, winch mount. You know, they got a hole in the front already for the fair lead cable to go through. That's not so bad. We'll try it out. We'll see how much it bends up. I imagine it will, and then we'll fix it, you know. Breakaway box. You know, surprisingly enough, you'd think they'd put a breakaway box on here and put a battery in it, but they didn't. So that wasn't going to work anyway. As far as the deck goes, it was there, basically free floats. They had like 5 screws across the front with this, you know, piece of flat stock. You know, they spent the time to countersink, but they didn't spend the time to paint the underside, so it started to rust immediately. You know, then they had another line of screws here, 1 in each board, another line of screws here, 1 in each board, and nothing under the back because it goes under a lip. That's not enough. You'd be surprised if you screw your deck down every cross member, or every other cross member even, how much stiffer the trailer will get, how much nicer the boards will lay over time, because this is treated wood, hopefully, and it'll warp. It'll warp as it gets wet and dries out and wet and dries out. It'll start popping up, doing all sorts of crazy things. So I will be ordering more screws to get that fastened down further, and I may not even put this front piece back on. It really serves no purpose. You know, they probably could have used a pile of screws across the front and been cheaper than that piece of metal, because metal ain't cheap. You got nice D-rings on here. Unfortunately, up here, you know, this is 3/16, but you know, you put a load binder on there and it's just going to bend the crap out of those front corners. So we might cut those off and move them down here to the actual C channel. As far as wiring, you know, comes back, it's all in this, you know, a commercial conduit that's welded to the frame. Put these little bushings on the ends so nothing chafes. Well, that would probably last 1 year, maybe. But everywhere's got these Scotch locks on it. And by everywhere, I mean everywhere. There is, you know, a whole pile of them there. Wires go back in the tube again, back to the axles, you know, pile of them there, pile of them back there for that rear axle. And then it just gets worse. Go right back to the taillights. I mean, what do we got? 5 of them there. Lights come over. And down here, holy cow. I don't know if you can see that under there. It's terrible, absolutely terrible. And you got your 3 lights in the middle, you know, more Scotch locks, another 6 of them there. And then you come over to where I had my problem. So I was just riding along and I noticed that my turn signal started to flash fast, which usually means you either blew a light bulb or you know, blew a fuse. Well, it turns out I blew a fuse. Blew my left turn signal, so that'd be the yellow wire. This yellow wire's got nothing on it, but because of the Scotch lock, it still has power coming all the way through, and it's just dead end there. You got copper sticking out. Here's another one. They didn't even fold that one over. You know, the wire end sitting out there live. You know, this end, That's the ground, but it's squished. You know, a couple more there. Got a hole. This looks like a dang Christmas tree almost. You know, there's 6 of them there. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to rewire the whole trailer, and not going to use this chintzy trailer wiring. Not going to use that, you know, split loom on the front, because as soon as that gets pinched, you're fixing it. So what I've got, this is something I had laying around. You know, this is all 7 wires, all jacketed, you know, heavily protected. This is actually a light cord from a semi truck. It goes from the truck to the trailer. I've got a few old ones laying around. So cut the ends off, we're going to use that. I'm going to use the plug that's on the trailer now. I'll put it on there, run it in this junction box, and then we'll mount that under the front of the trailer so that all of the rest of the trailer wiring can mount right in this box. And what that'll do is that'll give us a place to, if we do have in the future have issues, see if I can get this open, we can just, you know, undo one wire if we got a short we're trying to track down, or if we've got to redo something, we don't have to start cutting splices out. We can just unscrew it and then put a new ring terminal on, set it back up, because all of our wires will come out from there. Instead of having the cheap trailer wire, we're going to go to this. This is a jacketed 4-wire. Got all four wires in there, ground, tail lights, left turn, right turn. So that'll get us from the junction box at the front all the way to the back. And I still will put this in the conduit that's welded to the frame. But now you might be wondering, what about brakes? There's no brake wire in that 4-wire loomed wire. So we'll get another loomed wire. This is a 2-wire jacketed wire, and I believe this is 14 gauge. I don't know, what does it say on here? Yeah, 14-2. So we'll pull all the old wire out. We'll stick this through the frame like that, and that'll give us a lot of years of life, because it's got this outer jacket to wear on before it starts rubbing through a wire. You know, and then going out to the side markers, that doesn't have to be super protected. You know, it is in a tube all the way from that side to this side. So that I'm not super concerned about being a jacketed wire, but I want to make sure, 1, my brakes work, and 2, my tail lights work. If side markers go out, you still have turn signals and all of that. So we want to make sure we get this stuff up and running good. Got a spare tire. This kind of bounces around from a few of my trailers, but when I get my other one mounted up, I can put this one on this chintzy bracket that'll guaranteed to, you know, crack and break right off and be flopping down the road. So we might end up upgrading that. And then I went to Harbor Freight, picked up a 12,000-pound winch, put that up on the winch plate, and I've got a battery in a battery box that we're going to mount up there somewhere. Now, if I take that battery and I mount it in this toolbox becomes a battery box and no longer has place for straps or chains or whatever you want to put in there. So I'm thinking we'll probably make a tray right here so it doesn't stick out too far. Put the battery right there, and we'll make it charge off of the truck anytime you're plugged in. So that way the battery always stays charged while you're towing. It'll also control the breakaway switch, and it'll always be good to go then. All right, so I did a few things while I was off. This is the difference here. We've got 2 butt connectors, 2 connections, shrunk, and these are, they got the adhesive in there when you shrink them, so it seals them up pretty good. you know, you go from this mess to this. I mean, it's so much cleaner, so many less connections, you know, less to go wrong. So that's pretty good there. I did all 4 corners like that. Got, let's see, got the junction box mounted, got all the wires pulled in. Just got to land all those on the junction box. You know, it is a tight squeeze in these tubes that go along here, but you know, it works out pretty well. I don't need to fit any more wires in there. So, got the brake wires in here. Got a loop hanging down here so I can tie in there. And then we'll pull the extra back to here, hook up with the rear axle. We won't need the frame ground because everything has its own ground through the harness. So we won't need to ground the frame. I might still do it just because. And then back here, this is the 4-wire cable for the lights. Got that back to there, so we'll have to cut and splice it all there and then run it over to the other tail light, side marker lights here. I redid the 3 ID lights here, so it's all into 2 connections. Less to go wrong there. So I got those. I'm probably going to run those over to the right side. Instead of having a 3rd splice in the middle, we'll just have the 2 on either end and run them over to the side. And then got the wires here for this side as well. So it's coming along. It's taken quite a bit of time. You know, it's hard to video wiring. Wiring is like the most boring thing to video. I enjoy wiring. I've got no problem with it. Except I enjoy doing it. I like making it perfect, trying to make it as sealed up as possible to make it, you know, make it really a long-term thing, not just, you know, it might make it 30 minutes into your first drive home. Well, truth be told, it's been about a year since I recorded rewiring the lights on this trailer I picked up. And I haven't done a great job at recording some of the things. So, we're going to walk around, show you those couple of other upgrades that I did and what we still need to do. You know, I've been using the heck out of this trailer, and it's kind of opened my eyes to a couple of things it needs yet, and a couple of things we need to change. So let's take a look. Well, let's start at the front and we'll work our way back. Out of necessity, I quickly installed my winch. See, it's got the fair lead there where there was the hole in the front cross member. Allows me to put a V-bridle on it, pull vehicles up on here. I had this truck bed rail toolbox laying around, so I mounted the winch inside there, and this worked out pretty well because I sat it on the winch mounting plate that's under there, and it just went over the front rail like that. It's meant to be. So I've got it bolted to the fair lead there. I've got the winch bolted down through the toolbox to the winch plate, and it all works out really well. Got the controllers in here, wired one. This is a wireless one. This is another wireless one I thought I needed, so we'll just keep them both in there for in case one doesn't work, whatever. Gives us some room for some straps, miscellaneous stuff over there. And then I ran the power wires. Well, I put this disconnect in here in case I ever have to change the winch out. So I can just unplug it there, put a new plug on the new winch and plug it back in. Or what I can do is I have jumper cables with that quick connect plug on there, I can unplug that, plug my jumper cables in. Let's say if I needed to jump start a vehicle that's on the trailer because the battery's junk, I can just hook it up there instead of having to bring another vehicle around and do any of that. So that might turn out to be pretty handy, but that was just how I had this winch already wired up on a receiver mount plate. I just decided to put it in here. So that worked out pretty well. And then I used this box. As I said, it's essentially a battery box. I've got a Group 31 battery in here. It's just something I had around, I've been using for the winch, and I've got to build a mount bracket for it to really secure it in there, but for now, some foam will work. So I've got battery cable run to here. This is a battery disconnect switch so that I can disconnect it when it's not in use from the winch. These little wires here, these are 10 gauge wires, those let it charge from the junction box we put underneath for this plug. So when it's plugged in and you're driving, it'll charge. Got an inline fuse, so if something rubs through, it could blow that fuse and not constantly short out, start on fire. The truck side is also fused, so we've got some redundancy there for burn down safety. Also have the breakaway wire run to feed off of this battery, because if you remember, this trailer had a box for the breakaway battery but no battery in it, so that all works out. So I just have a little key you stick in there that powers the winch on. It's all wireless remote, so you can stand next to the vehicle, roll the window down, steer it up. I got lucky with this one. The dualies just fit between the wheel wells. So that all worked out pretty well. I didn't change anything with the coupler or anything like that yet, but in the future I would like to change that coupler to a different style. Moving on back, as I said before, when I first brought this home, just on the trip home, the hubs got hot. So these have the Easy Lube spindles. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's a grease zerk in there. And what you can do is you can just stick a grease gun on there, and it pushes the grease back through the center of the spindle, out in front of the seal, and then pushes the old grease out and fills the hub up. I like to run trailer hubs completely full of grease. So I made sure all of the bearing end play was fine, and I chocked them full of grease, and they haven't gotten hot since. So that was a game changer. These manufacturers are going to save money anywhere they can, and if they can use a half tube of grease on 4 wheels instead of putting a half tube of grease in 1 wheel, they're going to do it and just let the bearings be your problem. So that worked out good. All of the lights all still work. I haven't had to do a single thing to them. All of my connections were good. One thing I don't like is the placement of the tail lights are underneath the ramps. You can't move the ramp side to side. They are spaced right where they are. Well, I had to shorten the stands from the ramps. I had to shorten these, so I put these C channels on both ramps, because this is what was there before. And as you can see, this part where my pinky is what touched the ground first. Well, they're about 3 inches too tall. If the trailer was level with the truck, sitting on level ground, you could not fold the ramps down without those feet just digging up whatever was behind the trailer. And if it's concrete or asphalt like this, there's no way you're getting the ramps on. They're just too tall. So major design flaw by them. Maybe these are the ramps from a 14,000 trailer that accidentally got put on here because those trailers would be about 2 inches taller. I don't know, it didn't work. So for the longest time, I just took the ramps off, and I had some aluminum ramps I would just set on this hinge bar and do it that way. But now you're dealing with carrying around more stuff, having to pull them out of the truck or unstrap them off the trailer and set them on. It was just a lot of messing around. So I just had this C-channel laying around, and now it works out perfect. So other than that, I've got to put more screws in the deck yet. It's starting to curl up quite a bit. Can't really see it with this truck on here, but it's there, but it needs more. Brakes still need to be adjusted. They worked, but you really got to turn your brake controller up. So we'll have to get to that. And this spare tire, I mean, you can see if you were off to this side of the trailer anymore, you'd run into the spare tire. This is a terrible spot to mount it. And then not to mention, it just sits there and wobbles going down the road. So you get your steel start wobbling and flexing like that, you're going to lose your tire pretty soon. And God forbid it land in somebody's windshield, and it will really ruin your day. So there's a couple of things. It does work the way it is. I don't normally leave the tire on there because I use it with other trailers. A lot of times I'll just strap it to the bed of the truck. Since I have to strap the spare for the truck onto the bed as well, I'll just strap them up there. It's typically what I do. I just put it on here because I wasn't going far and needed the truck for something immediately after. So one thing that I've seriously been lacking is a good set of tie-down straps. So a company reached out to me and said, hey, we want to send you some straps. Try these out. Let's get them out, take a look, and see what we got. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have multiple uses for them. Let's see what we got. All right, so a company called Trekassy reached out to me, said, we see what you're doing. Let's send you some straps and see if we can't make that a little bit easier, better, safer, stronger, than what we were doing. So let's take a look at what they sent us here. Got a bag, put them all in. These are the cinch style, that's what I call them. But basically, you wrap them around the wheel, through the wheel, and I'll show you that. And you loop it back through this ring, go right into your ratchet, you pull them tight. So we've got 4 of those. Got 4 of these heavy duty all steel ratchets, got an aluminum handle. I like these better than some. A lot of them have a plastic handle that just ends up falling apart or bending. So these are nice and strong. I believe these have, what is it, a 3,300 pound load limit. Let's take a look here so we get the numbers right. 3,333 pounds working load limit, 10,000 pounds braking strength. So we've got 4 ratchets, nice turned hook so you can grab your D-rings. Now these straps are 144 inches long or 12 feet. That gives you plenty of length. Let's say your trailer's longer and you put something short on, but you got a little bit of a ways to get to your D-ring. You need that extra length. You can always tie up extra. So, like I said, these are cinch strap. Got that same abrasion resistant cover. You can slide that to wherever you need it. It's just kind of free floating. But how you do these, let me get both ends here. You loop that through, and now you've got kind of a lasso you can put over the tire. You can run this through the wheel, back through here and really cinch it around the wheel and the tire. And then you've got that abrasion resistance that can be on the inside of the wheel in case there's any, rough edges, so it's really protected the strap there. So, all right, so typically, if you were strapping down a car or a smaller pickup, you would have a flush surface all the way down. Being that this is a dually wheel truck, you've got lug nuts sticking out. So if you were going tie down your average vehicle, you loop that through, get your abrasion cover to the back in case you've got any, hit any of the suspension components, you've got something for that to rub on. Just kind of get it down there, and we're going to pretend the lug nuts aren't there. You loop this sucker through. Just pull it out the back, right on the D-ring, and ratchet it away. And by doing it this way, it pulls any slack through that ring and really just tightens it right up on that tire. And that's not going anywhere. Squishes the tire in, it really grabs a good hold. Now, being that we've got lug nuts on this particular truck, there's another way we can do this. So with the strap, you just open them all the way up, pull in the handle till they lock and they release. So, like I said, we got this cover on here. We're going to pretend that valve stem's not there, because you never want to rip off your valve stem. And you loop it through, get that cover. The cover covers 100% of the part of the rim you're going on, so you've got that extra protection. Stick it through the ring, pull your slack. I like to make sure my straps are straight, they're not twisted or rolled over on themselves. And then take the end. I like to close the ratchet to fish them through. Hook up your ring. Try to get it in as straight of a line as possible. And there you go. You've got it cinched around the tire. And then the final step, that ain't going anywhere, So this way we can not have to worry about the strap getting cut there. I wouldn't have any hesitation to pull it that way. And this is almost my preferred method. It can't slip out anywhere there. You've got a hook with the release on it, so it can't slide off the D-ring. You're through here. There's nothing that can come unhooked. It's really an ideal setup for hauling cars. Now another option you've got is you've got the axle straps. You can go around the control arm, grab it that way and pull. And if you got a hook on there, it's not coming undone. There's nothing to slip off. But you can also take these and go around the wheel. Just like that. This is where having the nice 36-inch long strap really pays off, because you can get all the way around the wheel, you can grab hold of it, and you can give it a pull, and that's not going anywhere. I want to thank Trekassy for sponsoring today's video, and I'll have a link to these straps down in the description. All right, I think that's going to do it for now. We've got our winch mounted. I would have liked to record that, but You know, it was kind of one of those things, hey, I need this now. There's no extra time. You know, same with the ramps. It's, hey, I got to leave in 6 hours. I'm just going to get it done. So we'll have to do another video when we do the coupler and the brakes and stuff like that. Move the spare tire, put some more D-rings on here, you know, give other places for these new straps to, you know, hook to. So I think that's going to do it for now. I appreciate you watching. Overall, I'm happy with the trailer. I'm happy it didn't cost me a bunch of extra money just to get a nicer paint job and still have the same quality of no grease and this. I'm happy with what I got. The bones are there, you know. It's going to work out. It's been working out. It just took a little bit of elbow grease beforehand. So I appreciate you watching. Go ahead, check out Trekassy straps with the link down in the description, and we'll catch you next time.